reduce the volume. Is there not an option? Okay. All right. Never mind that. All right, welcome back to the stream. Today I'm going to be doing another course, or actually another section on the course of practical time management.
Do you know these moments that you have a clear plan, but are able to complete just a tiny part of it? Or moments that you try to work, but distractions seem to pull your brain in several directions at once? This module will help you focus and stay away from distractions. I hope to cover many distraction sources and methods and tools to fight with them, including most popular strategies to cope with typical office distractions. But first, what actually is focus? And how do we train ourselves to focus better? It turns out that our ability to focus on is actually an ability to block distractions. So if you want to...
Okay, so definition of focus is ability to block distractions.
Want to be better in focusing, you have to be better in blocking distractions. I recommend Your Brain at Work book.
Ooh, okay. Recommended reading. Your Brain at Work. David Rock.
If you want to know more. The problem is, we often try to use our logic to fight with distractions that come from our emotional part of the brain. So we have task lists, calendars, we build good habits as a protection layer, but it's still very easy to distract us on an emotional level. It's a very unequal fight. I mentioned our prefrontal cortex that had 5 major functions, and one of them is actually blocking or inhibiting. This part of your brain can fight distractions. The difficulty is that this is very energy consuming, and you have a finite amount of that energy every day. So, if you have a day that you need to fight a lot of distractions, actually, your capacity for deciding, remembering, and recalling or understanding is lowered. We have to use different strategies, or we will be burned out and frustrated. What's more, today people try to multitask more and more. Our ability to multitask is partially a myth. Most experienced drivers can, for example, drive a car and freely talk, or listen to podcast or audiobook. But you cannot talk to someone and write an email at the same time. On our emotional level, our brain does a lot of things in parallel. You are now breathing. I hope your heart beats okay. There are many automated, unconscious processes going on right now. You can even try to control some of them with your logic, like hold your breath. On a habit level, we have automatic processes that can happen at the same moment. Multiple habits are at work when you drive your car. We can fully multitask on that level. Our logic, however, has a very strict limit. One cognitive task at once. A study by the...
Right. Our prefrontal cortex. It's a strict limit. On having one cognitive task on handling one cognitive task at once.
The University of London found that participants who multitask during cognitive tasks experienced an IQ score decline similar to those who have stayed up all night. In experiments published in 2001, Joshua Rubinstein, Jeffrey Evans, and David Mayer conducted 4 experiments in which young adults switched between different tasks, such as solving math problems, or classifying geometric objects. They found that even brief mental blocks created by shifting between tasks can cost as much as 40% of some.
Ooh. Even brief mental blocks created by shifting between tasks can cost as much as 40% of someone's productive time. Okay, so basically, when you're doing something, don't shift your attention. Don't be in an environment where you're allowed to shift your attention on something else. So work in a distraction-free environment is what this message is trying to convey.
One's productive time. So every time we think we're multitasking using our logic, we are actually switching the tasks, and it costs us an enormous amount of energy. This is why you can drive a car and talk, because driving a car is on habit level, while talking hopefully uses your logic. But if you go to a country that you need to drive on the opposite side of the road, suddenly driving is no longer a habit, and it requires your cognitive capacity. You probably won't be able to talk with others or listen to anything. And this is really important to understand, because there are things we simply cannot force our brain to do, and by trying to do so, we only lose our precious energy that could be used for better purposes. So, to focus better, we need to get better in fighting distractions. We cannot, however, use our logic all the time, and we cannot multitask. So we need some different strategies that will be covered in the next lessons.
Cool.
Distractions may come from many different sources. Let's first divide them into three big categories. Internal distractions that live within you, and others may not even be aware that you are fighting them. External, but under control, so outside of your body, but you have full control over them. And external, not under control, so outside of your...
Internal, external, but under control. 3, external, not under control. This way lives within you, and others may not even be aware that you are fighting them. External under control, outside of your body, but you have full control over them. Also outside your body. You don't have control over them.
Your body, and you don't have control over them. So let's start with internal distractions. The first and very popular source is emotions and anxiety. It's like trying to work in a very noisy environment, but the noise is coming from within you, and it seems it cannot be turned off. If you remember our 3 layers of information processing, you know that when you're emotionally aroused, your logic may not work properly. And if this is a problem for you, I always recommend to go and get help. Our brains are made that way, so we need external logic that is not connected with our emotions. This may be a friend, a therapist, someone you trust, but don't try to fight that battle alone. This is especially true if you don't have habits that protect you. This may be a downward spiral that needs help, not spending more energy. Second internal distraction is a new idea coming to you. Because our brain is curious, what is new will always be more appealing than you are doing right now. This is another unequal fight of logic level with emotions level. And to protect us from that, all we need is a habit. A new idea is a trigger, and the action is to write down the idea, put it on a side, and continue.
New idea. When encountering new idea, write down the idea and put it on aside and continue working. How to deal with this.
You working. You avoid multitasking, switching context, and simply move on, while you may trust that the new idea is not lost. This way, you are saving a lot of energy. Another internal distraction is a temptation to just check one more thing.
Habit of just checking one more thing.
Then we find ourselves spending a lot of time on clicking from link to link. I'll cover that topic along with external distractions because the method to fight it is the same. I would also put being tired as an internal distractor. You know that when your prefrontal cortex doesn't have enough energy, it will be much harder for you to resist any temptation.
Ooh, okay. That's actually important. When your prefrontal cortex doesn't have enough energy, it will be much harder for you to resist any temptations.
This is why good sleep, rest, diet, and exercising is so important.
Good sleep, rest, diet, exercise. Help with this.
And it provides glucose and oxygen to the part of your brain that's responsible for self-control.
Oh, okay. Which results in the production of glucose and oxygen to parts of your brain. It's responsible for self-control.
Now, let us look at the external distractions, which is one large group.
Okay. Oops.
We have notifications on our phone, computer, smartwatch, or a tablet. We have communicators like Messenger, Skype, WhatsApp.
Okay, for example, notifications from apps.
Slack, and others. We have phones that may ring at all times. And we have emails.
Phone ping. Emails.
The good news is that it's totally under our control. We may disable notifications, close email program, enable Don't Disturb mode. We cannot, however, cut ourselves completely because often other people need us to complete their tasks. So we will cover strategies for that in the next lesson, so you're protected from distractions and at the same time you're able to work in a group effectively. The last group is other people and noise.
Wait a second. The last group, is he talking about number 3, or is this still part of something that we still have control over? Do we have control over other people?
We cannot control other people's behavior. They will always fight back because one of the biggest emotional needs of our brain is a need for autonomy. So whenever you're trying to control other people's behavior, they will fight for their autonomy. And with noise, there may be, for
When you're trying to control other people's behaviors, they will fight for their autonomy.
for example, a road construction that you have no control of. The only solution to that out-of-hand category is establishing an agreement, a set of rules in a group.
Solution is to establish an agreement, a set of rules in a group.
We will cover that in the Coping with Office Distraction lesson. So you may now think and mark which 3 distractions out of the one listed are the biggest problem for you, and we will work on strategies to fight with them in the next lessons. You may also find some extra materials on distractions in the lesson notes.
In that case, oh crap. I don't think you meant that other people and noise belonged into group number 2. Should actually be here. All right, moving on.
As we mentioned in the previous lesson, we could technically...
Actually, I kind of already know the Pomodoro technique, so I'm going to actually do 2x on this.
cut ourselves from external distractions, like chat, notifications, or email, but that would kill our teamwork. So we have 2 extremes. 1, you are responding to all distractions immediately. Every email gets answered right now. You're constantly on your team chat. You answer all calls and read all phone and computer notifications as they come. Or 2, you completely cut yourself from all distractions. Put your phone in airplane mode, close email program, switch to don't disturb whenever you can. Between these 2 extremes, there is, however, a healthy balance point that we need to find. We are not reacting to all coming distractions immediately, and this way also avoid multitasking and switching context. At the same time, we are providing answers that our team needs to move on with the work. To achieve that, there is a concept of working in a block. To start a block of work, we need to 1, decide on time limit. How long can your team work without your immediate responses? If you never work in blocks, 20 to 30 minutes is usually a good start. 2, we make a plan. What's your focus during this block? What tasks are you going to work on? Choose them and maybe even move to another very short list. 3, you set the timer so it rings when your time limit is over. 4, you block all distractions. And 5, you work until your timer rings. This way, you can fully focus and stop controlling the time. When the timer rings, you may enable notifications, email program, chat, and others, answer everything that needs your attention, and at this point, you could even make a short break and start another distraction-free block. A very popular method based on distraction-free blocks is called the Pomodoro technique, which is a registered trademark, so I won't spend too much time on that in this course. Please visit their site for more information and formal training. Pomodoro technique has strict guidance on work and breaks timing, but it's important that it promotes an interval of 25 minutes of focused work, followed by a break. Good news is that this concept is scalable to your needs. You may start with one 25-minute block once a day, you may have several short blocks during the day, or if you can extend the time of a block usually up to 2 hours, what would be actually very good, especially for creative work. The good news is that you may start small, experiment, and see what works best for you and your teamwork. By experimenting, I hope you can find this optimal point of your focus versus teamwork. So now think when is a good time for you to try your first distraction-free block. How long would you like to make it? Plan it, cut yourself from all distractions, and see the results. I met few managers that said that in 25 minutes of focused work, they can achieve as much as they do in 2 hours of constant multitasking and switching context. They were also much more relaxed and had better work satisfaction.
Ooh, I guess that's a important point to be able to reference.
In this lesson notes, you may find some extra materials on working in blocks, and in the next lesson, let us cover some useful apps and plugins that will also save some energy in our brains.
All right, that was pretty straightforward. Let's see. Okay, cool.
Our focus on distractions is a constant fight. Remember, social media and news are created to be addictive. Just look at the screen of your phone with all of these numbers next to applications, notifications. They open information loops supported with urgency and curiosity. And what is more, when you open it, you get an immediate reward. This is an ideal habit formation cycle that very quickly leads to addiction. And this is why so many people check their phones so many times a day. It very quickly moves from our logic to the habit level, and then logic with its finite energy is not enough to fight it back. There is, however, a method to battle that challenge. There are tools, apps, and plugins to help us with that. Their popularity grows as the problem becomes more and more serious to a growing number of people. The first group of tools helps us block distractions. For example, Stay Focused plugin for Chrome will help you configure which sites you want to monitor.
Stay Focused. Chrome. Okay.
And then set a time limit for them. Let's say you want to allow yourself 40 minutes a day on all social media and news platforms. You can clearly see how much time is left as you're browsing, and after your time is over, instead of the site you requested, it will show you a different screen. Good news is that you don't need to control yourself with logic. There is a tool to help you. The same problem may be solved in Firefox with Leech Block plugin. You may also install an application on your operating system called Turkey, and you may configure it to block specific sites or even applications. And this is extremely useful when you try to limit your gaming, for example. With our mobile phones, the situation is slightly worse. We cannot install browser plugins, and the device itself is more addictive. The most popular applications that are present on both Android and an iPhone are Freedom and Forest. Freedom will help you configure which sites are allowed and at what times, and will cut you from it based on the configuration. Forest helps you keep focus because you plant a tree, and if you quit the application to do other things, your tree will die. Of course, you can still answer calls and do some basic operations, but
Force app for mobile.
Tree after tree, you may grow your own forest of focus. If you see the problem when you're using your mobile phone or tablet, try one of these applications and experiment with them. For people that have to use Facebook or LinkedIn for work, it would be good to check the Newsfeed Eradicator plugin for your browser. You can still visit the sites, but instead of your wall, you see a famous quote, and that's it. So you may check the information you need through them, but you won't end up in infinite scrolling. This is especially useful for people working in marketing. The other group of tools helps you monitor how much time you are spending on specific sites or in specific applications. WebTime Tracker for Chrome, Mind the Time for Firefox,
Chub.
or Rescue Time as an installed application will monitor what you are doing and then allow you to see the summary of your activity. You may immediately realize
Actually, BRB. Stella. Stella. Awesome. Let's start this back up.
is how much time you are spending on specific sites, and it may be scary. Scary enough to be emotional, and that actually helps us change. The same functionality is now built into operating systems of our mobile phones. iOS 12 introduced weekly reports with information which apps and sites were used the most, and you may also configure blocking them. The same functionality is now being added to Android phones as well. It's serious because it's actually fighting an addiction that is completely legal. The most important aspect of this fight is to stay guilt-free. Whenever you blame yourself for lack of self...
Oh, yeah. Most important aspect of this fight is to fight against distractions, to stay guilt-free. This is because as you blame yourself for lack of self-control, it'll make matters much worse. Or just worse.
control, you make the problem worse. It's a common problem and there are plenty of options. So if you think you have the problem in any of the areas mentioned, that may be a good moment to actually install at least one plugin or app that you think will give you the biggest value. The list of useful plugins and applications may be found in the lesson notes. In the next lesson, we will cover typical office distractions and how to fight with them. Fighting office distractions is hard. It's connected with other people that we don't want to disappoint. We want to be liked, accepted, and valued, and avoiding distractions in this context is much more emotional. So in a typical office, we have two groups of problems to solve: the tools and the people.
Two groups of wait, are we still on? Okay. Two groups of office distractions. One are the tools, the other is the people.
With tools, the situation is simple. You will manage them, or they will manage you. Your choice. For example,
actually, that's kind of funny. So I'll just put that. Let's take a screenshot. Manage them
Microsoft Outlook by default displays a pop-up window every time a new email is coming. This helps you react very quickly to every coming email, but it is a focus killer. Remember, multitasking and switching context is a very costly operation for our brains? So step number 1 is to disable all pop-up windows that are not actually requiring your immediate attention.
And kind of already
this will save you a lot of energy. With other people, because everyone has its own autonomy, we cannot force anyone to do anything.
We cannot force anyone to do anything.
However, we have two powerful tools: feedback and group agreements.
Ooh. What we can work with is feedback and group agreements.
Sometimes people do unwanted things because they are not simply aware of what it does to other people.
Sometimes people do unwanted things because they are not simply aware of what it does to other people.
This is why communication skills are so important. In such situations, we have to give valuable feedback and be assertive. When you invest in these skills, they will pay you back, especially in a noisy office environment. We don't want to be aggressive or passive-aggressive, but we always have the right to tell others how we feel, remembering they have their own autonomy. In a group, it's even more complicated, and to avoid endless discussions, we need a set of simple rules that everyone agrees with. So we sit down, present the problem, and try to find a solution that will work for everyone. Do you also have that problem that when one person calls the customer on an open space, and other people cannot focus? What we could do about it? And if we all agree with the solution, we have our own group agreement and no autonomy was broken. But if you cut corners and come up with a policy or try to force people to use it, you will definitely fail.
The policy to try to force people to use, you would, okay. Yeah, this is actually a reoccurring event that I've seen in the past. Let's see, how do I word this? Policies, like we can call it the behavioral policies, to try to force people to use, to adhere to, will definitely fail. Wish there was like an article or like a site that I can refer people, like managers, to when they try to do this. I need to look into that, but anywho.
The problem with group distractions is that when I'm fully focused and someone distracts me for just 2 minutes, then it was 2 minutes for him or her, but actually 22 minutes for me, because now I need another 20 minutes to achieve full focus again. And sometimes you just need 2 minutes, but you are taking someone to achieve.
The problem of group distractions is that when I'm fully focused and someone distracts me for just 2 minutes, then it was actually 22 minutes that they distracted me for, because it takes 20 minutes to fully achieve full focus again. Okay. Problem with group distractions is that if you're distracted for 2 minutes, the outcome looks more like a 22-minute distraction from getting back from picking up the same momentum of focus again, given that it will take you 20 minutes to achieve full focus again.
Full focus again. And sometimes you just need 2 minutes, but you are taking someone else's 22 minutes. We want to avoid that. So, few example group agreements that some teams found useful. We all have high focus block in one specific hour in our office, the hour that worked for the whole group.
Just paste this here.
We try to avoid meetings at that time, we try to keep silent, we try to avoid distracting each other. On an open space, if you need to call for over 3 minutes, please leave to some other space.
On an open space, if you need to call for over 3 minutes, don't do it at your desk. This way, you may quickly call the doctor or solve quick problems, but nobody in an open space spammer. But nobody is an open space spammer that distracts 10 other people. Yeah, this is actually a very important point.
This way you may quickly call the doctor or solve a quick problem, but nobody is an open space spammer that distracts 10 other people. 3, make an agreement that you may put a visible sign on the desk that you are in a high focus.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, make an agreement that you may put a visible sign on a desk that you are in a high focus area right now, or a high focus environment. You are in a high focus mindset mentality. By seeing this, by seeing this on your desk, you realize that my 2 minutes is now your 22 minutes. If I think something can wait, I will come later. Okay, it's to make people realize, what was this point right here, right? Because not many people are aware that they're distracting you. So if you make them aware by point number 3 here, that they're actually taking 22 minutes of your time for their 2-minute ask, then they'll probably not try to bug you if it's not really that urgent.
Right now. By seeing this on your desk, I realize that my 2 minutes is now your 22 minutes. And if I think something can wait, I will come later. And 4, avoid political and...
Oh, okay. Oh, that's actually kind of interesting because we all know not to bring up political topics in the office, but sports, I didn't know that. Oh, actually, this might be useful to someone.
and sports discussion before lunch. A beautiful strategy that works in most environments is experimenting. You will never find perfect solutions and people fight with them because they feel their autonomy is limited. But usually people are pretty open and curious about experiments. So instead of thinking about some formal policies, what usually works great is, why don't we try this or that over the next week or two?
Okay. So methods for approaching any of these solutions. One is to try out over next 2 weeks, next 1-2 weeks, and and make a summary of how it worked out. Works, then let the rules stay. Else, improve it or discard it.
And then make a summary of how it worked for us. If it works, let it stay, and if it doesn't, we'll decide to improve it or leave it. So, as a task for this lesson, please identify the most common problem in your office and plan an action just for that one problem. What experiment could you run with your team? And that summarizes this module about focus and distractions. As you can see, this fight is not equal because our logic has a very limited capacity to block distractions, and at the same time, social media, news, and games are simply addictive at a habit level. So we have a number of solutions, applications, and plugins to help us fight it. The most important thing is to stay guilt-free. And for the teamwork, all we usually need is a set of experiments to find group agreements that would work for the whole team. Now, let us summarize the whole course and see how we can put that in action in your everyday life.
All right, it's quiz time. All right, question number 1. What is the limitation of our brains when it comes to cognitive tasks? Just 1 task at a time, 3 tasks at the moment for the maximum, 7 tasks. No, it's just 1. Question number 2, why working in a distraction-free block actually helps? Because we need some time to achieve full focus, and at the same time, we don't want to kill the teamwork. Because using your phone is mostly wasting your time because other people are disturbing real work. I think it's going to be the first one. Question number 3, what's the best method to fight temptations to browse the internet or to use phones constantly? That's going to be... It's not going to be promising yourself because that would be fighting your limbic system, which does you no good. So you want to make a habit of using limits or setting limits for yourself to cut them off at a certain point. Question number 4, what is the best strategy to find group rules for distracting each other? Propose an experiment. That sounds like the right answer, but let's see. What else is there? Go to the manager of the team to create a policy for everyone, which, as he mentions, never works. Behavioral policies to try to force people to adhere to will definitely fail. And 3, it cannot be done. Face it, people will always be distracting each other. That's if you don't do anything. Take no action, and this is what you will get. All right, got 4 out of 4, and I think I am done with this section.
Your days may get...
All right, sweet. I think I am complete with section 5. I will continue this probably tomorrow and finish up the course since I only have maybe 6 more lessons and they're all really short. Let's see. So 3 more lessons, a quiz, and then the entire course summary, which is only 5 minutes. Awesome. Sweet. That said, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.